latest reports, Geoff, are that the Man United brass are meeting about Erik ten Hag and his future. So what does this all mean right now?
To be honest with you, in a strange way, I don't think the result could have been worse. Now, I know that sounds bizarre because if they'd been beaten, it was, I think it was done and dusted. If they'd won, there's a pause for thought. But it was a really, I don't know how much you saw, but it was an awful game, an absolutely awful game from both sides, admittedly. So what did they do? They were all there. So Jim Ratcliffe, Amar Barada was there as well. Brailsford was there. Ashworth was there. They were like hanging judges, weren't they? So what do they do about Erik ten Hag's future? And let's be brutally honest, you can't have seen anything yesterday and thought, this is going in the right direction. And as we know, you can't avoid the stat either. It is their worst ever start in Premier League history. So the owners have to say to themselves, have we seen or heard anything whatsoever that makes us think that this will change? And if they haven't, they've got to make a change.
Geoff, it feels like constantly with Ten Hag and Manchester United, as of recently, we get this crescendo build-up. And then when we feel that the haymaker's going to land, there's a result that kind of puts everything into question. The Manchester United moving on beyond Ten Hag at midweek against Porto. 3-2 would have felt like that would have definitely done him in. But then this Harry Maguire save Ten Hag, sure, from a results point of view, but the football itself wasn't great. And then at the weekend, he didn't lose to Aston Villa, but the football itself wasn't great. How many times are we going to keep on saying this until he gets fired or the football gets much, much better to the Manchester United standard?
Well, I personally don't see that happening anytime soon. I don't think he's got the personnel. I mean, Nico, what a massive statement at the weekend. Bilic and Martinez, not rotated, not rested, dropped. Not good enough right now, not good enough to be in the first team for Manchester United. And they are two of his signings. That is a damning statement. It really, really is. So I just feel that they've got to, with what they're doing, I just think they've got to make a decision. And Manchester United are a team of moments. They're a team of moments on the pitch, and they're a team of moments in terms of results. The occasional moment isn't good enough for going forward, not at all. I personally would be surprised if he's still in the job the next side of the international break.
Geoff, 38 points dropped so far in this calendar year. That's not good enough for most teams, certainly not if you're Manchester United. I think we all can agree that the Erik ten Hag era is close to being over. But now let's talk about what happens next. With this hodgepodge squad, who could possibly make this look better? Or is this complete rebuild? And I think there's a lot of pressure now on the new ownership because they seemingly have gotten this rehire very wrong.
Yeah, interesting you call it a rehire because they had that summit in the summer. They spoke to other managers. They didn't do anything about it. But I think, Alexis, what they need is somebody who's a very practical manager. He's got to come in and whoever it is, I think is likely to say to the ownership, right, OK, I can come in. Do not expect miracles right now because the squad you've got and some of the buys you've got are simply not good enough. However, I can come... Oh, getting ready. The Cortinas are playing for us tonight, so there's a little sound check from them. I think they need a manager who will come and say, OK, I accept this squad is unbalanced. It isn't good enough, but I can get some results to get us to January where we can bring some fresh blood in. And I think that'll be part of the agreement with the new coach. He'll want to know that the funds are there for him to reshape the squad for long-term success.
Geoff, I don't know if you saw, there was an image we got here of Ruud van Nistelrooy and Erik ten Hag having a really heated conversation, almost where, and we're showing that clip right now. I know you can't see it.
No, I know it, Tony. I know it.
Yeah, so it's almost as if Ruud van Nistelrooy is pleading something that Erik ten Hag doesn't want to hear. And Van Nistelrooy's been pretty supportive of Ten Hag from the start. This is kind of the first images like this we've seen.
Yeah, Tony, the only thing I would say, I mean, at first glance, it doesn't look great, does it? But I don't know about your experience, if you've ever played or worked with Dutch. They are unbelievably forthright. Forthright. I mean this quite literally. And it's never, ever personal. It's not emotional at all. And you have to kind of get used to it. Literally, if I was working with a Dutch broadcaster, he would say to me, probably not originally, Yes, Geoff, I mean, you must admit you are nowhere near a top broadcaster yourself. You have limitations, but you do your best. And then carry on talking like that. It's literally, they are that direct. So I personally would discount that because of the nature of many, many Dutch people. I've seen and heard it so many times in football. But I think they've got a lot bigger problems than that. It's as simple as that. The results, the performances, everything about it is really poor.
A constructive criticism, hardness discussion amongst Dutch people must be brutal.
You'll find out where you stand.
I'll never say the words, tell me how you really feel.
I never forget our great friend Ruud Gullit, who used to laugh about this. And he used to say with a smile, he said, you have to remember, our viewers, if it ain't Dutch, it ain't much.
The Midwest girl in me, I would crumble. I'll say that. Geoff, Brighton Tottenham, another big game, and for Spurs, they're up 2-0 at the half, and then 3 unanswered from Brighton in the second. It just completely tailspin for Ange Postecoglou's side. What went wrong from your perspective?
They fell apart. They weren't strong enough. They had the chances, should have closed the game out. First time ever a team in the Premier League has been 2-0 up and then lost the game on 10 different occasions. That's not a record they want. Ange Postecoglou, he said afterwards, this is the worst performance under me since I've been at the club. I have to say, I mean, he can be a difficult interview anyway, Ange, but he more than wears his heart on the sleeve. I mean, I don't know if you saw his interview. Literally, he was like a tortured soul. He was in pain. He was inexplicable the way that they lost that game. And, you know, they weren't good enough. They weren't strong enough physically or mentally. Simple as that.
Hey, Geoff, can we talk about my old club, Brighton, here just for a second? Because I'm amazed. From Graham Potter, he immediately leaves. They have a replacement, right, in De Zerbi. And then all of a sudden you find a 31-year-old Fabian Hertzler. Like,
From the second division of Germany.
We have to talk about what they're doing from a scouting department on the field and in that manager's box, because it truly is amazing, because based on what this league is in world football, they've done it sort of almost different than most of the clubs.
You've got to give great credit to Tony Bloom and Paul Barber, who run the show down there. They do everything by the book. Their data intelligence is absolutely extraordinary. It is such a well-run club. And again, you know, yes, Tottenham lost, but Brighton were really, really good. So they deserved the victory, didn't they? So they've fantastic performances. And I've got to say, I love Danny Welbeck. You know, injuries hampered his career. He should have had a lot better career than he had. But what's never changed is he's a top player, a top striker. And he seems to be really enjoying something of a renaissance down on the South Coast. And I'm delighted for him, because I say he's been so unlucky with injuries. But no, Brighton, they are the real deal.
Geoff, I'm going to ask you to give me like a really early doors prediction here. I think we're all in agreement, right, that Brighton is a great team. But if we're looking at the top four, Arsenal are going to be there, City are going to be there, Liverpool are going to be there. Who do you think is that fourth team? And is Brighton that fourth team right now?
No.
What about the other part of the question when I said who?
You asked him a yes or no question. So.
I think you've got to be looking at Chelsea. I think you've got to be looking at Chelsea. Things are starting to click. The kids are all right, as the song goes. So yeah, I think you've got to be looking at Chelsea right now. But long way to go. You know, we're only 7 games in. You know, long way to go.
Put it in print. He said Chelsea.
Well, Geoff, you are more than all right. Always great having you on the show. Have a great time tonight. So incredible what you're doing, and we hope it's a great success.